What's up? We're back. It's Jason,
I'm Elias.
back with senior season. We're missing a couple guys, but Max is going to fill in for us. And Captain Becker, if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Brian Becker. I have just recently retired out of the Navy after 30 years. So basically, after St. Pat's, I got a Navy ROTC scholarship, went to school at the University of Illinois, did that for 4.5 years, got accepted to go to flight school, and then basically got commissioned on January 7th of 1995. And for the past 30 years, been going all around the country as well as the world, serving in the Navy. Got a chance to fly the F-18. Background duty stations. I was an instructor at Top Gun for 3 years. I commanded VFA 31, which has ties all the way back to 1927, World War II. Really cool stuff. I was a strike fighter wing Commodore, which means I had the role of man, train, and equip all the F-18s on the East Coast. I've done 5 to 6 deployments, and have got to do some really, really cool stuff. A lot, I will say, for the foundations that I got, going to St. Patrick High School. I grew up 3 blocks away from there, right on Belmont Central, and it was a great time. I have fond memories of all the times there. I can't believe Brother David is still there. He was my advisor back in the day.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah, and you can ask him about me. He'll probably roll his eyes a couple times and get a good chuckle out of it. So,
No, yeah,
Ah,
you're talking about your memories at St. Pat's. One that Mr. Richard always tells us about is that winning layup or shot you had against St. Joe's to win it.
mhm.
Want to tell us about that moment?
Yeah, that was good. That was happened to be the prep game of the week. We hadn't beat St. Joe's in a long, long time, and I saw that, it was cool. It was on Throwback Thursday, and my kids, I have an 18-year-old senior who'll be attending Villanova next year. I got a 16-year-old daughter. I got an eighth grader. So all I feel like I know a little bit about your generation, maybe a little bit more. So also, I was just the professor of naval science at Old Dominion University, Hampton University, Norfolk State University, Regent University. We have what's called a consortium here, so I have a lot of interactions there. But to see that game was really fun. Brought back some real good memories. We hadn't beat St. Joe's in a while there. On that team, you had William Gates, and if you ever saw Hoop Dreams,
well, we just
he was
watched
just
that in
yep.
one of our classes. Oh yeah.
Yep. Yep. So that he was on that team. That was actually, if you remember in the movie where he comes back from his knee injury, that was the first game he
Uh-huh.
played. He didn't
Oh yeah.
start that game, but that was the first game he played. So, it was good. I think I had 2 or 4 points in the regular time, and then in overtime, hit a couple layups, hit a couple free throws, and that was it. So, it was fun to see again. It was a great game. We had a great team, and again, the brotherhood that I'm sure you all experience, was alive and well then, and it's really cool to see that it's alive and well now.
Oh yeah, Mr. Becker. This is Jack. Want to introduce yourself?
I'm Jack Harrington. Sorry I'm late. It's my mom's birthday today, and we went out to breakfast. I'm going on my Kairos retreat later today. So,
Where'd you go to breakfast?
Blueberry Hill in the Grange.
Okay.
All right, now into the good questions. Is there anything you learned at St. Pat's that you took with you through your whole Navy and military career?
That was the start of teams, and the reason why I stayed for 30 years in the Navy was just that support of the people around you. A fighter pilot ready room is a lot like a locker room. And in the good ways, not the bad ways. You share the pain, you share the process. It's there's a lot of practice in the profession that I chose in the Navy. We fly a lot, we do a lot of debriefs, we do a lot of prep work. And it's not always what you see in the movies. There's a lot of confidence that has to be built. There's a lot of things that you have to do to get good at your craft. And that's one of those things, that, learning at St. Patrick's when I was back there, majorly, coming from basketball, I played 4 years of basketball. I did play, one year of football, but just that support you get from your teammates is something that lays a foundation that you will be able to apply anywhere you go. And it doesn't just have to be sports. It can be, things you're doing now with podcasts. It can be, orchestra, the arts, whatever it is that allows you to work well with people, and be subjected to other opinions and other, being able to accept those both praises and criticisms is something that will last you a lifetime. So, I remember the 4 years of basketball. It was a fun senior year. We had a lot of good times. It was Max Curlin's last couple of years with the program. A legend coaching, and the great thing is, and this is what St. Patrick's does, they hire another legend, and you have the same coach, for the last 30 years. And that builds a culture of excellence, and that's what I think we had back then. And just based on what I see following your feeds and listening to what y'all are doing, it's even stronger now. I mean, the fact that you are still an all boys Catholic school in the city is something that's special. And I look back to those days growing up in high school, just being able to be a boy transitioning to a man. It is something special, and you got a lot of special people that care, and you guys continue to do great things. So it started with that.
All right. What are like during your whole school, and like, what were the steps you took to become a fighter pilot? Like, how many hours did it take? How many hours in the air? Like all
Sure.
that stuff. How long did that take, really?
Yeah, I mean, I started with the application process. So, 1989, I'm putting it this was back when you had to use mail. There was no internet, there was no nothing. So you had to send this in a handwritten application. Not the Common App where you get to apply to 1,000 schools. This is something you had to go through, right? I knew that was something that I think would be cool to do, right? I mean, let's be honest. 1986, there's a movie that comes out that kind of highlights what the Navy does on aircraft carriers called Top Gun. And it looks to be kind of cool. In all honesty, I had no real way to pay for college. So I thought, well, I could do something cool, serve my country, and get college paid for. Let's try this, and I did. And honestly, within the first 3-4 years, I'm like, well, maybe I'll get out first opportunity. But then I decided to stay in because I enjoyed the camaraderie of the ready room. Now, to become a fighter pilot, it's not easy. It's 2 years of flight school, and there are a lot of challenges with that. You got to, not only just learn to basically fly the aircraft. That's the easy part. Landing, taking off, getting from point A to point B is the easy part. The hard part is now maneuvering around other aircraft. I had about 300 hours by the time I got winged. And that was flying the T-34, the T-2, and the A-4. And then I got selected to fly F-18s, went down to Jacksonville, Florida. At that point, I had about 300 hours in the aircraft. And that's when the real training began, right? Because you're learning how to fly this aircraft and doing multiple missions. We drop bombs, we do BFM, basic fighting maneuvering, where we're fighting somebody within visual range. We do stuff beyond visual range where the enemy's, 150 miles away. And what are we going to do, to gain an advantage and make sure that we maintain, air superiority? So, within that first 3 years, I got about another 1,000 hours in the aircraft. And at that point, I was done with my first, JO tour, my first C tour. I got a chance to do a lot of stuff. If you look back at your history books, you remember Operation Allied Force, which was Kosovo. I was on the Theodore Roosevelt that flew during that. So as a very young pilot, I got some very good and real experience out there doing that, and then was selected to go out to Top Gun. Spent 3 years out there, without a doubt, the best flying that you can ever do. I wouldn't say I was the most talented pilot out there, but again, based on the foundations that you get, where you're at right now, you learn how to work hard, and that's one of the things that has always done me well. So, I work really hard. I got the opportunity to do a lot of different flying. Some of the best flying I've ever did out in Fallon, Nevada. It's in the middle of nowhere, hour east of Reno. But man, you get really good at what you do. And then, continued with my career. I was a department head. So I was the head of a, maintenance department, operations department within a squadron. Got selected to be a commanding officer. So I was the commanding officer of a squadron. And then ultimately I got selected to be the Commodore Strike Fighter Wing Atlantic, and got a chance to, really I think affect the entire fleet on the East Coast. We had about 250 airplanes that were distributed among Sea Wings, and there's we can go on a whole discussion on that. But that's not the cool flying stuff. That's the that's what they do to you when you get old, and although you can still fly, you can't fly as well as you used to. So it was a lot of fun. But that's kind of the track. I mean, by the time I finished my first sea tour, which was, when we did Operation Allied Force, we were doing Operation Southern Watch. I actually left the aircraft carrier on September 3rd of 2001. So while the attacks on the World Trade Center are happening, I'm actually heading west to go to Top Gun. My sister lived in Bloomington, Illinois at the time, and I was actually at her house getting ready to talk to her students, her kindergarten students, about how cool flying was. I had my flight gear, and I was gonna, tell them about all that stuff. And then obviously those events kind of change things for my generation. For you, again, it's a little bit of a history book. Listening to parents when they talk about it, it was it was the first time on our soil that I think we as Americans felt threatened. And it changed a little bit, and so it was a great tour, a lot of good flying, and going back to the St. Patrick, foundation that was laid, knowing that you can do it, and you have a very supportive, administration there, faculty, staff, all want to see you do well, and they challenge you. I mean, hopefully, they don't keep it easy on you. Hopefully,
Oh yeah.
they're putting you in positions where you're going to make mistakes. They're putting you in situations where you may temporarily fail just to see your reaction, right? I mean, if you go through your entire career at St. Patrick's and you never have a bad day, you didn't challenge yourself. You take the good with the bad, and you go out there and you figure out what needs to improve, and you go fix it. So there's a lot of great things that I look very fondly of as I look back, which is a very long time now. And it's going to scare you how fast it goes. You'll remember this, maybe, this old man telling you how quickly it goes, but the fact that it's been 35 years since I've been graduating at that school is a little crazy.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I had a question. What
Sure.
was your most rewarding experience being a naval aviator?
A lot of this is helping our junior sailors. So, I get in the Navy, I'm about 22, 23 years old. I'm an officer. And by the time I get out to the fleet, which is about 2 years later, you start to get introduced to, the real workforce of the Navy, which is our, enlisted sailors. For me, they maintain the jet, right? They fixed the jet. I went out there, I flew it. If something was wrong, I came back, I told them what was wrong, and they fixed it, right? I didn't get a whole lot into turning wrenches, but that's what we have, our enlisted force to maintain that. And, the expertise that they have is phenomenal, both technically, mechanically, I mean, everything just to maintain, that at the time, the most advanced fighter jet in the world is pretty remarkable. So anytime I got a chance to kind of help them, support them, make their job easier, find innovative ways to do things, that was always, something that I enjoyed doing. And that's probably why, as I got older, and although I was still flying, I wasn't necessarily flying, all the, as many flights as I had, when I was younger. You start to get in that role where you're trying to find ways, to, not necessarily make it easier on them, but more efficient, making sure they know why they're there, building a team, making sure each and every day they know why they're turning that wrench. They know why they're sweeping the floor. They know why these things are happening, right? Because we all have a mission to do. And if we all don't do our job, there's going to be issues. And, for the profession that I chose, if we don't do our job, people die. Right. And it's a little more serious than just, maybe missing a shot, maybe, striking out when you should have got that hit or whatever. So, being able to influence them and build some pretty good teams, and being able to get a couple of accomplishments that I did throughout my career, and then just to serve 30 years doing something I love. It was pretty nice. I'm sure you've heard the adage, do something you love and you never work a day in your life.
Oh
That's
yeah.
true. You got to find that, and
Mhm.
you can find that anywhere. I don't care, if fighting fires, patrolling the street, working on the electrical, doing whatever, just find something you love doing, and then make it as best as you can for you and the people around you, and you're applying all the things that you learn at St. Pat's, and that's something that will create, I think, a happy life. It won't always be perfect. You're going to have some struggles, but those are the kind of things that I think will.
Oh yeah, with 100%. Now, I was wondering, did you have any crazy or near-death experiences when you were in the air?
Yeah, when you are maneuvering your jet near stall speed. So real quick, just a quick aerodynamic lesson, right?
Hmm.
The aircraft wants to fly. However, if you get it slow enough, there's not enough air going over the wings, and the aircraft will stall. So, when you are fighting BFM, basic fighting maneuvering, all the things you see in the movie where, you're right there and you're using your hands, and you're,
Oh,
half a mile away, a lot of times, you're going to be right there at stall speed, right? And then as you're passing somebody like left to left, and you may be going 500-600 knots, and so is the other person. That's 1,200 knots of closure. Things are happening fast. So there was one flight I had where we were doing a 2 versus 1, and I was part of the two. And this is kind of flight where we're just out there. We're not really using a lot of our sensors. We're trying to get our eyes out of the cockpit to see an aircraft that's coming in to find us, and then we're going to fight him, and hopefully, get the kill quickly so we can get our eyes out and look for the next threat that's coming out. Well, we were fighting our fight, doing what we're supposed to do. I knew where the other aircraft was. My expectation, he was going to kind of execute the game plan, and he didn't execute the game plan. And all of a sudden, as I'm flying through the sky, getting ready to pull up and shoot the guy, that's up, above me. I feel something, and I just see something out of my eye. And um, Ultimately, when we went back, and we have these pods on our jet that kind of create a aircraft figure on a computer, so we can kind of see where everyone is, and we're kind of debriefing it. We passed 125 feet away from each other, basically, right nose to nose, just like that. And a little bit of a difference, and we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. So that was one thing in training. In wartime, in Kosovo, I was shot at by SA-6s, AAA, had it explode near us. For those, though, typically all the combat missions that I did, we had air superiority. So it was more really the pressure you put on yourself as you see the guys and gals on the ground that are having a hard time calling you in for fire, trying to make sure that the bomb lands on the bad guys, not the good guys, maintaining situational awareness, all these things that are happening, and the added pressure when they're on the mic calling for fire and you hear gunshots going off in the background, it can be a little bit intense. So, I've had some near death experiences, but I'm pretty sure I had a pretty positive effect on others' near death experiences that they had by being able to put my jet in the right place and do what I was supposed to do.
Oh yeah. Now, as a Top Gun instructor, how accurate was Top Gun?
Um, the some of the flying scenes, the BFM scenes,
Oh,
yes, flying around the mountains, yes. I mean, actually, Top Gun Maverick, the second one that came out, I was the Commodore of Strike Fighter Wing Atlantic, or I was the Deputy Commodore of Strike Fighter Wing Atlantic when they were filming that movie, and we actually painted the jet with Maverick's name on it. It was our jet, so that was kind of cool that we got to use that for the movie. But
hmm.
those scenes, they were actually flying a lot with the Top Gun instructors that were out there at the time. Now, I had been far removed from that; I wasn't out there. But so those flying scenes and that mission, a lot of that is fairly realistic. When they talk about the two consecutive miracles, putting two bombs in one, that is sometimes what you need to do. So it's a pretty cool. Some of the flying scenes realistic. some of the the Hollywood scenes.
Oh
they're going to
yeah.
want controversy. All the egos. Somewhat accurate sometimes, maybe not so accurate as far as other things go. But hopefully, when you look at that, you see that although there's competition, although you may think that that there's one common mission, and eventually, you put away all your opinions and you just go out there and execute what you're supposed to do. So in that respects, it was it was somewhat accurate. But
Oh
you
yeah.
know, I could tell you, I haven't played a whole lot of beach volleyball. Those aren't 100% accurate, but it's competitive though. I mean,
Oh
you
yeah.
talk about sports, you talk about the things you love. One of the things that the Navy did is, we always have, what we call Captain's Cup teams. So I mean, heck, up until about 5 years ago, I was still playing basketball on teams. Competing against others and those kind of things. So it's fun.
Have you ever buzzed the tower?
I've done flybys.
Oh yeah.
You always want to get approval. I mean, those situations there, at that time, those things did happen and they were a little more accepted. I can tell
Mhm.
you right now, if anything like that happens, that's probably the last time you fly an airplane. And unfortunately, I've been in those situations where I've seen some kids who, got a little too excited and made some mistakes. That's never a happy day.
Yeah.
So one of the things that you teach is just always being professional in the jet. The way I looked at it all the time, and the flybys I did were authorized, right? I can tell you, month 6 on a deployment where you're in the Gulf and it's 140 degrees, doing a flyby, getting approved by the tower and doing a flyby of the ship can provide some motivation. It's a reminder of why we're there, what we're doing, and that sound of freedom is pretty impressive, so those are done. But if you're told no and you do it, you're in a lot of trouble.
Now that first question kind of leads me into this one. You prefer Top Gun or Top Gun Maverick?
Um, I look back, probably more fondly on Top Gun. Although I thought Top Gun Maverick was really well done. And again, the storyline and just the fact, I'm proud of the fact that we provided, some support to that movie. Our maintainers, painted the jet. They were actually on scene. So the week or so that they used the jet to film the movie and they put, they got shots of it. They were doing touch ups when the plane came back. We got about seven to 10 maintainers who got to go out there who have some really cool stories about that. This was 2017, 2018. They were actually filming. Didn't come out till I think what 21, 22. So we actually got scolded by Paramount a little bit because as the jet's coming out of our paint barn, obviously people want to take pictures of it. They know what's happening. Unfortunately, those pictures got leaked on Facebook. So it was like we need to take those down. We didn't take those down. It was cool. And I got a couple pictures of me by that jet. And it's neat stuff. So it's just those kind of experiences that you get to do and the opportunities that you see
Yeah,
and what you have.
that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like your to like when you're, a Navy pilot. What was your typical schedule, for day to day?
Yeah, it varied, right? So one of the things that you learn as you get into naval aviation is that safety is paramount, right? And although if the purely combat operations dictate it, you're going to maintain a certain schedule. You're going to get 12 hours of rest every night. Your day is not going to exceed 12 hours. So when you have to fly sometimes at day, sometimes at night, your schedule kind of varies. So if I'm flying a night flight and I'm not taking off till 9 o'clock at night, I'm not coming in until at least 9 o'clock in the morning. Maybe a little bit later. So those kind of things make your schedule a little bit in flux. So on your average day, when I was a junior officer, a junior pilot, I'd come in, I have a ground job, throughout, I was, line division officer, which, helps prep the jet for the flight, so we have 18, 19-year-old kids that are making sure all the fasteners are tightened, everything's ready to go. They're giving us the hand signals as we pull out of the line, and then they're welcoming us back. We got our avionics department, we got, our mechs, that are fixing engines and other things. So you are kind of the division officer for those shops as you're doing it. Sometimes you may be the skeds officers, but you got that ground job that you're doing. So you're going to come in, do some ground job, hopefully get down to the hangar, talk to the troops, see what's going on, see where you can implement. You're going to do a little studying. You're going to get prepared for your flight. Your flight is typically going to brief about 2.5 hours prior to takeoff. The brief's going to last about an hour and 15 minutes. Then you go fly. That is typically between an hour and about an hour and a half for your average training mission. And then when you come back, that debrief can be anywhere from an hour and a half. I mean, I've had 6 hour debriefs. One of the things we do out Top Gun is really dissect, the flight to make sure that we're bringing out all the learning points. So there's been some debriefs that have been in it that have been very long, and they can be a little painful. But you really, you get a good feel for where you're at once you need to improve on. So on an average day, that's it. And it'll average, between 8 and 10 hours, you're kind of doing this, and then going home, figuring out what's on the schedule for the next day, and then kind of setting up your day for the next time. That's when you're on shore. Out at sea, you are gone. The longest I've been gone was 9 months. That was difficult. That happened to be when my son was born. So he was born at the about the 2.5 month point. So when I come back home, I hadn't seen him yet. He's 6 months old. That's tough. But on a carrier, you're working all the time, and if you're doing it right, you're doing kind of the same things, except you have a much longer day to do that in. And trying to better yourself, even though there is the lull of deployment where it gets to be a little bit difficult. Where the days just kind of like Groundhog Day, every day is the same, and then you happen to be in the Gulf and it's really hot, air conditioning doesn't work, and it's just a little bit miserable experience. But you talk to any Navy person, typically they're going to tell you a lot of stories from deployment. So although it was the hardest time, it's a time I think that we look back fondly on and have a lot of sea stories to tell.
We got the doc pulled up on the phone with all the questions.
You do that one
No, we haven't.
Yeah, sorry. What is something that surprised you, or what is something that people don't realize about naval aviation?
They may know how hard you work. They may know, kind of what it takes. I think it's cool, but I don't think they realize how much dedication each and every one of our sailors have. Whether you're flying a plane, whether you're fixing the plane, it doesn't matter. It's a collective group of individuals that are out there to do the best that they can. And that's I hope people know that. We talk about that all the time, but really you have some individuals very talented that come together as a team. Our goal, we project power ashore and at sea from aircraft carriers. That's what I did. And we do it really well. And it takes a lot of hard work. I mean, when you got 5,500 people on an aircraft carrier, its own floating city, its own police force, its own, grocery stores, they, cook, clean, all those things. It is just it's kind of organized chaos to make that happen. And then if you ever get the chance, and you can see flight ops on an aircraft carrier, it's controlled chaos. And there's just, a million ways to get hurt. You got to do what you're supposed to do. There are people looking out for you. And you got to be ready for the unexpected. I mean, every so often, this is like, every 5-10 years, you'll hear stories of a resting hook snapping, and when that does, it whips around. And if you're not paying attention, it's going to be a rough day for you. So, we all got to look out for each other. It is a team going out there, supporting each other for the ultimate goal, and we all have different roles. Accept your role. If you want a different role, work to get there. But that's what I don't think people understand. They see it. I think they assume it is. But when when we go out there, and I've gotten the chance to take people out in the aircraft carrier, we have DV visits and other things. One of the things, the themes that they come back with is like, wow, I didn't realize how much you guys rely on each other. The men and women of the Navy, of the military in general, do an outstanding job of doing what they need to do for the mission.
Yep. We just got our notification. We got 10 minutes left in our free Zoom. So this will probably be our last question.
Yeah. But hold on. Jason, what was your stat line that you said earlier
about? No, the question, where was it? What is the best and worst part about being in the Navy?
The best part is, being on the team. And if you have that attitude, right, and unfortunately these days it's a little bit different, I think, especially with, we had a time period where we, kind of isolated people. That was a challenge. We have our phones, that tend to be our world, where, I don't know if you guys are allowed. I mean, obviously you have it in there because you're asking questions, but, one of the best things my kids' high school did is they took away phones during the day. And wow, kids are playing ping pong against each other. They're socializing with each other. They're doing these things. So, the best part about it for me, of the Navy, is the fact that there is still teams there, and we get people to kind of participate and get out there. It's not always easy, right? Because not everyone, has been a part of that before. I think you all have, a leg up because I think you understand what it takes to make things happen. I mean, I see you got a football sweatshirt on. I'm assuming that you played football, baseball, so you know what it's like to be a part of that. So that's greatness. The thing that's frustrating in the Navy, is, there's two navies. There's big Navy that makes all the decisions, and then there's the Navy that I could be, that I was able to control, or at least have a, impact on. And that's a much smaller Navy. And not always did the things that we thought we were supposed to do and should be doing and was the best way to do it, that wasn't always supported. And I'm not saying we were right, but there are big strategic decisions that have to be made sometimes that can make it frustrating. And when I had a way, hey, we could be better, faster, more efficient, and all we need is to do this. When you're told no on those things, it can be frustrating. But if you accept that and you understand that, you're going to find a way to get, to the end state, and you're going to find a way to make it happen. So, just like any big organizations, their bureaucracy, things can take a lot of time. It can be very frustrating, right? So, the way I always described it, when I was looking up at Big Navy, I can't control that. They're going to tell me the rules. They're going to tell me what I can do. And I'm going to take as much, authority as I can, to make a difference in the people that are around me. So that was how I handled that. But, big Navy, big government, big everything can be tough, we find, you try to find a way to get through it, but it's not always easy.
Oh yeah, well that just about wraps up our time. So thank you very much for coming on the podcast. Very
No
much.
problem.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate your time.
Yeah.
I wish you the best of luck, and tell Brother David I said hello.
I will for sure. Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Thank you.
Have a nice
We'll see
day. Bye.
You too.